Jake Morrison heard the sound first. It was like thunder, but different. The noise came from above, getting louder and louder. He looked up through the trees, but saw nothing at first. Then a bright flash lit up the dark Montana sky. Something big was falling fast. Jake could see it now, a silver shape spinning through the air. It was heading straight for the forest where he was camping. The thing hit the ground about half a mile away with a crash. That shook the earth under his feet. Jake grabbed his backpack and ran toward the crash site. He had been a Marine for 8 years before becoming a survival teacher. His training kicked in. Someone might need help. A smell of smoke and burning metal filled the air as he got closer. Through the trees, Jake saw a strange sight. The crashed object was not like any plane or helicopter he had ever seen. It was smooth and silver, about the size of a small house. Parts of it glowed with blue light. Jake moved carefully around the wreckage. The front part of the ship was crushed against a large rock. Twisted metal stuck out everywhere. Then he heard a sound that made him freeze. Someone was inside, and they were hurt. He found a crack in the side of the ship that was big, enough to crawl through. Inside, strange lights blinked on and off. The air felt thick and hard to breathe. Jake pulled his shirt over his nose and kept going. In what looked like the main room, he found her. At first, Jake thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. The person trapped under a fallen beam had blue-tinted skin and was taller than any human he had ever seen. Her arms and legs were longer than normal, and she wore strange clothes that seemed to shimmer. Jake did not waste time thinking about what she was. The beam across her chest was heavy, but he managed to lift it enough to pull her free. She was unconscious, but still breathing. A device on her face looked like it helped her breathe. Jake was careful not to damage it. The ship started making new sounds, high-pitched whines and clicking noises. Some of the blue lights were turning red. Jake's military training told him this was bad. Very bad. He lifted the strange woman and carried her out of the ship as fast as he could. He was 50 yards away when the ship exploded. The blast knocked Jake to the ground, but he kept his body over the woman to protect her. Hot metal flew through the air above them. When everything went quiet, Jake looked back. The ship was gone. Only a smoking crater remained. Jake carried the woman to his camp, which was hidden in a small valley about a quarter-mile away. He had chosen this spot because it was protected from wind and hard to see from above. Now he was glad for the privacy. He laid her down on his sleeping bag and checked for injuries. Her left arm was broken, and she had cuts on her face and hands. The blue color of her skin was real, not paint or makeup. Her breathing was slow, but steady. Jake had basic medical training from the military. He cleaned her wounds with water from Xi'an, his canteen and antiseptic from his first aid kit. He made a splint for her arm using sticks and strips of cloth from his spare shirt. As he worked, Jake studied her face. She looked young, maybe in her 20s if she aged like humans. Her features were sharp but not unpleasant. The breathing device covered her nose and mouth, connected to a small pack on her belt. The device worried Jake. What if she could not breathe Earth's air without it? What if the pack ran out of power? He checked the pack and found what looked like a power indicator. It showed about half full. Night was coming. Jake built a small fire using dry wood that would not make much smoke. He did not want to attract attention. The woman, alien, he corrected himself, needed warmth and rest. Jake sat by the fire and watched her sleep. Questions filled his mind. Where did she come from? Why did her ship crash? Were there others looking for her? What would happen when she woke up? He thought about hiking out to the nearest town and calling the authorities. But what would he tell them? That he found an alien? They would think he was crazy. And what would the government do to her? Jake had seen enough in the military to know that first contact with an alien might not go well for the alien. For now, he decided to wait. If she was hurt and alone, she needed help. Jake had been trained to help people in need. It did not matter if they were human or knocked out around midnight. She stirred. Her eyes opened slowly. They were large and golden, unlike any human eyes. When she saw Jake sitting by the fire, she tried to sit up quickly. Pain from her broken arm made her gasp. Jake held up his hands to show he meant no harm. He spoke slowly and calmly. "Easy, you're hurt. I'm here to help." She stared at him with those golden eyes. Her hand moved to a device on her belt, but it was damaged and would not work. She tried to speak, but the sounds that came out were unlike any language Jake had ever heard. They looked at each other across the fire. Two beings from different worlds, brought together by chance and disaster. Jake smiled and pointed to himself. "Jake," he said. She watched him carefully. Then she pointed to herself and made a sound that was close to Zara. Jake nodded. "Zara, nice to meet you." It was the beginning of something neither of them could have imagined. 3 days passed since the crash. Zara's broken arm was healing well, thanks to Jake's careful treatment. He had reset the bone properly and kept the wound clean. She no longer winced every time she moved. Communication was still difficult. Zara could say a few English words that Jake taught her. Jake learned that pointing to the sky and making a sad face meant she wanted to go home. Her golden eyes showed worry when she looked up at the stars each night. On the morning of the 4th day, Jake found Zara working on a small device she had taken from her belt. It was about the size of a phone, but much thinner. Strange symbols glowed on its surface as she touched different spots. "What is that?" Jake asked, sitting down beside. Her dot Zara held up the device and pointed to Jake, then to herself. She made talking motions with her hands. Jake understood. It was some kind of translator. "You're trying to fix it so we can talk." She nodded and went back to work. Jake watched her long fingers move over the device. She was clearly smart and good with technology. After an hour, the device made a soft chime. Zara held it between them and spoke in her language. A moment later, the device spoke in English with a mechanical voice. "Can you understand this communication?" Jake's eyes went wide. Yes, I can understand you." Zara smiled for the first time since he found her. "This device translates languages. It was damaged in the crash, but I was able to repair it partially." "That's amazing. What else can it do?" "Many things, but most functions are broken. I can only use it for basic translation now." Jake learned that Zara was not just any alien. She was Princess Zara of the Vorthic Empire. Her people ruled over thousands of star systems. She had been traveling to a diplomatic meeting when her ship's engines failed. "Your people must be looking for you," Jake said. "Yes, but they may not think to search this planet. Earth is considered very primitive by our standards. My rescue teams will look for me in more advanced systems first." Jake was not offended by being called primitive. He was more worried about what would happen when Zara's people did find Earth. What will they do when they get here? "That depends on my father. He is the Emperor. If he thinks your people hurt me, there could be trouble. And if he knows I helped." "You?" Zara looked at Jake for a long moment. "I have been thinking about that. In 3 days, you have shown me more kindness than most people in my own empire. You risked your life to save mine. You gave me your food and water. You made medicine from plants in the forest. My people have forgotten how to do such things." Jake felt embarrassed by her praise. Anyone would have done the same. "No, Jake? Morrison, not anyone. I have lived among nobles and politicians my whole life. Most would have calculated what helping me might gain them. You helped because it was right. That afternoon, Jake taught Zara basic survival skills. She was a quick learner. Soon she could start a fire without matches and find clean water by following animal tracks. Jake showed her which plants were safe to eat and which ones would make medicine. This knowledge could be valuable to my people, Zara said as she practiced. Identifying edible berries. We have medical machines that can heal almost any injury, but they require power and spare parts. What you have shown me works anywhere. Your people don't know this stuff. We have lived in spaceships and artificial environments for so long that we forgot our connection to natural worlds. We depend completely on our technology. That sounds dangerous. What happens if the technology breaks? Then we are helpless. As I was when my ship crashed. On the 5th day, they saw the first search ships. 3 silver vessels flew over the forest in formation. They moved slowly, scanning the ground with beams of blue light. Jake and Zara hid under the thick trees and watched the ships pass overhead. The vessels made no sound, floating through the air like ghosts. Why don't we signal them? Jake asked. Because those are not rescue ships. See the markings on their hulls. Those belong to the Korvac family. They are my father's political enemies. If they find me before my father's ships do, they might kill me to prevent my return. Jake felt a chill. They would murder you. The succession to the throne is complicated. There are those who would benefit from my death. My father has many enemies who smile at court, but carry knives in the shadows. Then we stay hidden. Can you keep us safe from their scanners? Jake thought about the ships and their blue scanning beams. Those beams looked like they were searching for metal and energy sources. If we stay away from anything electronic and keep moving, they might not detect us. You would do this for me. Risk your own safety to protect someone you barely know. You're not just someone. You're a person who needs help. That's enough. They broke camp and moved deeper into the wilderness. Jake led them through valleys and under thick tree cover. He showed Zara how to move quietly through the forest and how to hide their tracks. More search ships appeared over the next 2 days. Some flew the markings of the Korvac family. Others had symbols Jake did not recognize. All of them seemed to be looking for something. How many people want you dead? Jake asked as they watched another flight of ships pass overhead. More than I realized. My father always told me that being royal meant having enemies, but I thought he was exaggerating. Are there any good guys in this empire of yours? My father is a good man, though not perfect. General Kane commands his personal fleet. He served with my father for 40 years and can be trusted. If we see ships with the Imperial Phoenix symbol, those are safe. What does that look like? Zara drew the symbol in the dirt with a stick. It was a bird with spread wings, holding lightning bolts in its claws. I'll remember that. That night, as they sat by a small fire hidden deep in a cave, Zara asked Jake about his life. He told her about growing up on a farm in Nebraska, joining the Marines, and serving in Afghanistan. He explained how he became a survival instructor after leaving the military. You have seen war, Zara said. Some. Enough to know that it's ugly and should be avoided if possible. My people have been at peace for 300 years. Perhaps too much peace. We have forgotten how to be strong without our machines. Being strong isn't about machines or weapons. It's about doing the right thing when it's hard. Zara stared into the fire. I wish my father could meet you. He would like your philosophy. Maybe he will, if we survive long enough. Jake looked at the alien princess sitting across from him. 5 days ago, he had been alone in the woods, thinking about nothing more complicated than which trail to hike next. Now he was protecting royalty from assassins while hiding from spaceships. Life, he thought, had a funny way of changing direction when you least expected it. 2 weeks had passed since the crash. Jake and Zara had become a good team. She could now move through the forest almost as quietly as he could. Her broken arm was nearly healed, and she had learned to make snares for catching rabbits. But their situation was getting worse. More ships appeared in the sky every day. They had counted at least 30 different vessels from various factions, all searching for the missing Princess. Jake had started to recognize the different ship designs. The sleek black ones belonged to the Korvac family. The gray ships with red markings were from another noble house called the Vulders. The imperial ships with the phoenix symbol only appeared occasionally. Your father's people are outnumbered, Jake observed as they watched another flight of Korvac ships pass overhead. The noble families have more ships than the Imperial Navy. In this sector, my father keeps most of his fleet near the capital worlds. He probably never expected the search to last this long. What happens if the bad guys find us first? They will kill me and claim I died in the crash. Then they will fight among themselves for control of the Empire. Jake checked his rifle, making sure it was clean and loaded. They'll have to go through me first. Jake, your weapon cannot hurt their ships. Maybe not, but I don't plan to fight. The ships, I plan to fight the people inside them. That afternoon, everything changed. A large Imperial ship appeared on the horizon, flying directly toward their area. It was bigger than any vessel they had seen before, painted white with gold, trim and bearing the phoenix symbol. That's the Emperor's personal flagship, Zara said, excitement in her voice. My father is here. But before they could celebrate, 6 Korvac ships emerged from behind nearby mountains. They moved to intercept the Imperial vessel, forming a battle, line between it and the forest. They're going to fight, Jake said, not here. The Korvacs would not dare attack my father directly. They will try to reach me first. As if to prove her point, all 6 Korvac ships suddenly dove toward the forest. They spread out and began landing in clearings throughout the area. They're putting troops on the ground, Jake said. How many soldiers can those ships carry? About 20 each. So we're facing over 100 enemies. Jake did quick calculations in his head. They were 2 people against more than 100. Trained soldiers with advanced weapons and equipment. The odds were not good. We need to reach my father's ship, Zara said. That's 5 miles through forest that's about to be full of people hunting us. Do you have a better idea? Jake studied the terrain between their position and where the Imperial ship was landing. There were 3 Korvac ships between them, and safety. The enemy would set up a search pattern to find them. Actually, I might have an idea, but you're not going to like it. Tell me, instead of running away from them, we attack. Zara stared at Jake as if he had lost his mind. Attack them. Jake, they have energy weapons and body armor. They also have weaknesses. I've been watching their ships and soldiers through my binoculars. Their armor is designed to stop energy weapons, not bullets. And they move like people who've never fought on foot in rough terrain. You want to ambush them. I want to create chaos. If we can hit one of their patrols hard and fast, the others will converge on that position. While they're busy looking for us there, we circle around and reach your father's ship. That's extremely dangerous. So is sitting here waiting for them to find us. Zara was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. What do you need me to do? Jake spent the next hour explaining his plan. They would target the patrol closest to the Imperial ship. Jake would hit them with rifle fire from concealment, while Zara used her knowledge of Korvac equipment to disable their communications. Their comm units are built into their helmets, she explained. There's a small antenna on the left side. If I can get close enough to damage those, they won't be able to call for help right away. Can you move fast enough to get in and out before they react? My people may depend too much on technology, but were still faster and stronger than humans. They moved through the forest toward the enemy landing zone. Jake chose a position on a ridge overlooking a narrow valley where the Korvac patrol would have to pass. He had a clear field of fire and 2 escape routes. Zara hid closer to the trail, armed with rocks and Jake's spare knife. Her job was to disable any soldiers who survived Jake's initial attack. The first Korvac patrol appeared and fall. Hour before sunset, there were 6 soldiers in dark armor, moving in single file along the game trail Jake had predicted they would use. They carried energy weapons that glowed with blue light. Jake let them get halfway through the valley before he opened fire. His first shot dropped the lead soldier. The second shot hit the man behind him. The others dove for cover, but Jake had chosen his position well. There was nowhere to hide in the narrow valley. Zara moved like lightning. While the surviving soldiers were focused on Jake's position, she dropped down behind them. In seconds, she had smashed the communication equipment on 3 helmets and disappeared back into the trees. The whole fight lasted less than 2 minutes. When it was over, 6 enemy soldiers were down, and no one had been able to send a distress signal. That was incredible, Zara said as they regrouped. I've never seen anything like your shooting. Marine Corps training. Now we need to move fast. When this patrol doesn't report in, the others will come looking. They left the valley and began working their way toward the Imperial ship. Behind them, Jake could hear the sounds of search teams moving through the forest. But they were searching the wrong area. As they got closer to the landing zone, they could see the Emperor's ship clearly. It was magnificent, at least 3 times larger than the Korvac vessels, with elegant curves and decorative armor. Imperial soldiers in white and gold uniforms guarded the landing ramp. How do we get past your father's guards? Jake asked. We don't sneak past them. We walk right up to them. Won't they shoot first and ask questions later? Not if I identify myself properly. They emerged from the tree line about 100 yards from the Imperial ship. Immediately, a dozen weapons were pointed at them. The guards shouted commands in the Vorthic language. Zara stepped forward and called out in a strong, clear voice. She spoke rapidly in her own language, and Jake could hear the authority in her tone, even though he couldn't understand the words. Effect was immediate. The weapons were lowered, and several guards dropped to one knee. One of them activated a communication device and spoke urgently into it. What did you tell them? Jake asked. That I am Princess Zara, daughter of Emperor Thane, and that the human with me is under my personal protection. A few minutes later, a figure appeared at the top of the landing ramp. He was tall and imposing, wearing elaborate armor decorated with the Imperial Phoenix. Even at a distance, Jake could see the resemblance to Zara. Emperor Thane had arrived on Earth, and he wanted to know exactly what had happened to his daughter. Emperor Thane stood at the entrance to his ship like a statue carved from stone. He was taller than Zara, with silver hair and the same golden eyes. His armor was covered in symbols that probably meant things Jake couldn't even imagine. When the Emperor looked at him, Jake felt like he was being studied by a very dangerous predator. Father, Zara said, walking up the ramp with Jake beside her. The Emperor's expression softened slightly when he looked at his daughter, but his eyes remained cold when they shifted to Jake. Zara, when your ship was destroyed, I feared the worst. He spoke in English, though his accent was thick. Who is this human, and why have you brought him here? This is Jake Morrison. He saved my life and protected me for 2 weeks while your enemies hunted me. Emperor Thane looked Jake up and down. Jake stood straight but relaxed, the way he had been taught to stand when meeting superior officers. He didn't bow or act afraid, but he showed respect. A primitive human saved the crown princess of the Vorthic Empire, the Emperor said. His tone suggested he found this hard to believe. With respect, Your Majesty, Jake said, I'm not that primitive. And your daughter is tougher than you might think. Several Imperial guards reached for their weapons, but Emperor Thane held up a hand to stop them. You speak boldly for someone who stands on my ship, surrounded by my soldiers. I speak honestly. It's the only way I know how. Zara stepped between them. Father, Jake fought off a Korvac patrol to help me reach you. 6 trained soldiers attacked. Yours, and he defeated them all. Without his help, I would be dead. The Korvacs were here. The Emperor's voice was sharp with anger. They've been hunting me since the crash. So have the Valdris and others. Jake kept me hidden and safe from all. Of them, Emperor Thane studied Jake with new interest. You defeated 6 Korvac soldiers. How? They made mistakes. They relied too much on their equipment and not enough on basic tactics. Show me. Jake looked at Zara, who nodded encouragingly. He pulled out a piece of paper and drew a simple map of the valley where the fight had occurred. They moved in single file down this trail. No scouts, no one watching the high ground. I took position here and waited for them to enter the kill zone. Their armor stopped energy weapons, but not bullets. Jake explained the entire engagement step by step. He showed how he had positioned himself for maximum advantage and how Zara had disabled their communications equipment. When he finished, the Emperor was quiet for a long moment. You are a soldier. I was Marine Corps. And you learned these tactics in your military service. Some of it. The rest came from fighting in Afghanistan and from training other soldiers. Yet my intelligence reports say that Earth has no space travel, no energy weapons, no faster-than-light communication. How can a primitive world produce soldiers capable of defeating Korvac commandos? Jake felt a flash of irritation. Maybe we're not as primitive as you think. Maybe your people have gotten so used to fighting with fancy weapons that you've forgotten the basics. The guards tensed again, but Emperor Thane seemed more amused than angry. Explain. Your soldiers wear armor designed to stop energy beams, but they don't expect kinetic rounds. They move through open ground because they're used to fighting other people with the same equipment. They communicate constantly because they've never had to operate without radio contact. Jake pointed to the guards around them. Look at how your men are standing. They're in a perfect formation for fighting other soldiers with energy weapons. But if someone attacked with grenades or automatic weapons, they're bunched up too close together. You see tactical weaknesses in Imperial soldiers. I see soldiers who have been trained to fight one kind of war. When the enemy changes the rules, they don't adapt fast enough. Emperor Thane turned to his daughter. Is this assessment accurate? Jake has taught me more about real combat in 2 weeks than I learned in years of palace training. He can move through a forest like a ghost and strike without warning. His methods are simple but very effective. Interesting. The Emperor paced back and forth, thinking. Human, what do you know about the Korvac family? Only what Zara told me. They want her dead so they can claim your throne. They have wanted my throne for decades. What they lack is the military strength to take it directly. So they work in shadows, making alliances with other noble houses. How many ships do they have? More than I realized. This search operation revealed that several families I thought were loyal had been secretly building fleets. Jake frowned. You mean you're outnumbered, significantly. If they unite against me, the Imperial Navy might not be able to stop them. Then you need to change the game. What do you mean? You're fighting the kind of war they expect. Big fleets shooting at each other in space. But what if you fought a different kind of war? Emperor Thane stopped pacing. Continue. Hit and run attacks. Sabotage. Special operations. Take out their leadership instead of trying to destroy their fleets. The Vorthic Empire does not fight such irregular wars. Maybe it should. Sometimes you have to fight dirty to protect the things that matter. Before the Emperor could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. A communications officer ran up to them. "Your Majesty, we're detecting multiple ships approaching. Korvac and Valdris vessels are moving to surround us." Emperor Thane's expression turned grim. "How many?" "At least 40 ships, possibly more." "They mean to trap us here," Zara said. "And if we try to leave, they'll claim we fired first," the Emperor added. "Then they can justify attacking the Imperial flagship." Jake looked out through the ship's viewports. He could see enemy vessels taking positions around the landing area. They were being surrounded by superior numbers, with no way to escape. "Can your ship fight its way out?" he asked. "Against 40 ships? No. We might destroy half of them, but they would overwhelm us eventually. Then we need a different plan." Such as Jake studied the tactical situation. The enemy had numbers and firepower, but they also had weaknesses. They want to capture or kill Zara, right? And they want to make it look like you started the fight. Yes. So what if we give them what they want? Sort of. I don't understand. What if we make them think Zara is trying to escape on foot? Draw some of their ships away from here to chase her. While they're distracted, your ship breaks out and gets help. That would leave Zara trapped on the ground with enemy forces. Not if I'm with her. I can keep her hidden until reinforcements arrive. Emperor Thane stared at Jake. You would risk your life again to protect my daughter. She's my friend. That's what friends do. Zara touched her father's arm. He can do it, Father. Jake knows this planet better than any of our enemies. If anyone can keep me safe, it's him. The Emperor looked back and forth between Jake and Zara. Outside, more enemy ships were taking positions. Soon they would be completely surrounded. Very well, he said finally. But if you die protecting my daughter, I will hold Earth responsible. If I die protecting your daughter, Jake replied, Earth will be the least of your problems. The plan worked better than anyone expected. When Zara and Jake slipped away from the Imperial ship under cover of darkness, enemy scanners picked up her biosignature moving through the forest. Immediately, 20 ships broke formation to pursue, them on foot. With the enemy forces divided, Emperor Thane's flagship blasted through the remaining ships and escaped hyperspace. The Korvacs and their allies were left chasing shadows through the Montana wilderness while the Emperor went to gather reinforcements. For 3 days, Jake led Zara through terrain that became more and more difficult. They crossed rivers, climbed mountains, and traveled through swamps that made tracking nearly impossible. The alien soldiers, trained for combat in space and on civilized worlds, struggled with the harsh natural environment. On the 4th morning, massive Imperial ships appeared. In Earth's sky, Emperor Thane had returned with the entire Third Fleet, over 200 vessels that dwarfed the rebel forces still on the planet. The Korvac and Valdris ships surrendered without a fight. Their commanders were arrested, and their soldiers were taken prisoner. The rebellion that had threatened the Vorthic Empire for months was broken in a single day. Jake and Zara watched the end of the crisis from a mountain peak overlooking the valley where it all began. Imperial shuttles were landing throughout the area, collecting prisoners and securing the crash site. It's over, Zara said. This part is. But your father still has to deal with the politics back home. The other noble families will think twice before challenging him now. When word spreads that Earth humans defeated Korvac commandos, it will change how our people think about primitive worlds. We're not primitive. We're just different. That afternoon, Emperor Thane requested a private meeting with Jake. They sat in the Emperor's personal quarters aboard his flagship, a room that was larger than most houses and decorated with treasures from across the galaxy. I owe you a debt that cannot be repaid, the Emperor said. You don't owe me anything. I helped Zara because it was the right thing to do. That is precisely why the debt exists. In my empire, people help others because they expect rewards or fear punishment. You helped my daughter expecting nothing in return. Jake shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Anyone would have done the same. No, Jake Morrison. Anyone would not. I have spent my life studying different species and cultures. Acts of pure selflessness are rare in the galaxy. Maybe you've been looking in the wrong places. Emperor Thane smiled. Perhaps I have. Tell me, what do you think of my empire? Jake considered his words carefully. It's impressive. You have technology that seems like magic to us. Ships that travel between stars, weapons that can destroy planets, medicine that can heal almost any injury. But I think you've lost something important along the way, which is the ability to solve problems without technology. Zara told me that your people have forgotten how to live on natural worlds. What happens if your machines break down or get destroyed? We rebuild them. What if you can't? What if you're stranded somewhere with no parts, no power, no help coming? Then we die. That's what I mean. On Earth, we learn to adapt. We make tools from rocks and sticks. We find food and water wherever we are. We fight wars with whatever weapons we can build or steal. Emperor Thane was quiet for a moment. You think this makes your people stronger? Different, not stronger. Your technology gives you power we can't imagine. But our skills let us survive in situations where your technology fails. Like when my daughter's ship crashed. Exactly. All her advanced equipment was destroyed, but basic human knowledge kept her alive. What would you do if I offered you technology from our empire? Faster than light travel, energy weapons, medical devices that could cure any disease. Jake thought about it. I'd want to study it and understand it, but I wouldn't want to become dependent on it. Why not? Because then we'd have the same weakness your people have. If something happened to the technology, we'd be helpless. You would refuse such gifts. I'd accept them as tools, not replacements for human knowledge and skills. Emperor Thane stood and walked to a window that showed the curve of Earth below them. Most species in the galaxy would do anything for access to our technology. They see our power and want to become like us. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe instead of making everyone else like you, you should learn from them. Learn what? How to be strong without machines. How to think creatively when the standard solutions don't work. How to care about each other without calculating the benefit. The Emperor turned back to Jake. You believe my empire is weak. I think your empire is powerful, but brittle. Like a sword made of the finest metal, but with no flexibility. It can cut through anything, but hit it wrong and it shatters. And what would you have me do about this weakness? Send your people to worlds like Earth, not to conquer them, but to learn from them. Let your soldiers train with people who fight without energy weapons. Let your engineers work with people who build things by hand. Let your leaders govern people who don't have instant communication. This would require a complete change in how the empire operates. Big problems sometimes need big solutions. Emperor Thane was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Jake Morrison, I am going to make you an offer. Become my personal advisor on primitive world tactics. Help me build a new kind of military unit, one that combines our technology with your adaptability. I'm not qualified to advise an emperor. You kept my daughter alive for 2 weeks using nothing but your wits and basic equipment. You defeated trained commandos with simple weapons and clever tactics. You see weaknesses in my military that none of my generals have noticed. I would say you are uniquely qualified. Jake looked out at the Earth below. His quiet life as a survival instructor seemed very far away now. What would this job involve? training selected soldiers in what you call basic skills, teaching them to fight and survive without depending on advanced technology, helping me identify other primitive worlds that might have valuable knowledge. And Zara, my daughter has expressed interest in staying on Earth to study human culture and military techniques. She would work with you in this new program. Jake smiled. In that case, Your Majesty, I accept. 6 months later, the first class of Imperial soldiers graduated from the Earth Survival Academy. They could hunt with bows, navigate by the stars, treat injuries with local plants, and fight effectively with primitive weapons. The program was controversial within the Empire. Many nobles thought it was beneath their dignity to learn from primitive species. But when the graduates began performing missions that regular troops couldn't handle, opinions started to change. Zara became the official liaison between Earth and the Vorthic Empire. She split her time between the Academy and the Imperial capital, teaching both sides about each other. Jake never got used to being called Advisor Morrison or having his own spacecraft. But he found that he enjoyed the work. Training alien soldiers to think like humans was challenging and rewarding. And sometimes, late at night when he was alone under the stars, Jake would remember that night in the forest when he first met a crashed alien princess. He had thought he was just helping someone in need. He never imagined he was changing the course of galactic history. But that, he had learned, was how the biggest changes often happened. One person helping another, one decision at a time, until suddenly everything was different. The primitive human and the alien princess had become partners in building a new kind of future. And across the galaxy, the word was spreading that sometimes the most advanced civilizations could learn the most important lessons from the simplest people. Dr. Lisa Warren pressed her gloved hand against the cold surface of the crystal wall. The structure rose high above her head, reaching into the darkness of the underground chamber. Strange blue light pulsed through the crystal like a heartbeat. She had never seen anything like it in her 20 years of studying dead civilizations. "Jake, come look at this," she called to Captain Jake Miller, who stood near the entrance with his weapon ready. The ruins on this moon had been empty for millions of years, but Jake never took chances with his crew's safety. Amy Foster, their pilot, knelt beside a smaller crystal formation. Her scanner beeped rapidly as it tried to make sense of the readings. "Doc, these crystals are older than anything we've found before. The computer says they're at least 50 million years old." Ben Clark, their engineer, shook his head as he studied his equipment. "That can't be right. Nothing we know about could build something like this that long ago. The galaxy was basically empty back then." Lisa walked deeper into the chamber. The crystals seemed to respond to her presence, glowing brighter as she moved closer. "Maybe we're wrong about how empty the galaxy was. Maybe someone was here long before any of the species we know about." The team had been exploring the ruins for 3 days. Their ship, the New Horizon, sat on the surface above them. They were supposed to be doing routine surveys of dead worlds, looking for minerals and maybe some basic artifacts. Instead, they had found the most advanced ruins any human had ever seen. "These patterns," Lisa said, running her scanner over the crystal surface. "They're not random. This is some kind of writing or code system." Jake moved closer, his boots echoing in the vast chamber. "Can you read it?" "Not yet, but there's something familiar about it, like I've seen parts of it before in other ruins." Lisa frowned at her scanner's display. "That's impossible, though. We've never found anything this advanced." Amy stood up from her crystal formation. "Doc, you need to see this. My scanner is picking up some kind of power source. These crystals aren't just pretty rocks. They're still active." Ben hurried over to check Amy's readings. "She's right. There's definitely power running through this whole structure. It's like the whole place is one giant machine that's been sleeping." Lisa felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. Sleeping and waiting for what? Before anyone could answer, Jake's radio crackled to life. The voice of their communications officer came through clearly. "Captain Miller, we have a problem up here. Long-range sensors are picking up multiple ships approaching fast. They're not human." Jake grabbed his radio. "How many ships, Dan?" "At least 12, sir. Big ones. They'll be here in less than an hour." Lisa looked around the crystal chamber with new urgency. "We need to document as much as we can before we leave." "No," Jake said firmly. "We leave now. We can come back later with a bigger team and better protection." But as they started toward the exit, something changed. The crystals began glowing, much brighter. The blue light spread through the entire chamber like water flowing through cracks. Then the crystals started singing. It wasn't really singing, but that was the only way Lisa could describe the sound. It was beautiful and haunting, like voices from a dream. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. "What's happening?" Amy asked, backing toward the exit. Ben stared at his scanner in disbelief. "The power levels just jumped off the scale. The whole structure is waking up." Lisa stood frozen in the center of the chamber. The singing seemed to be calling to her specifically. Without thinking, she reached out and touched the largest crystal formation. The moment her hand made contact, the chamber exploded with light. Images flashed through the air around them. Star maps, strange symbols, and pictures of beings they didn't recognize. But mixed in with the alien images were things that looked disturbingly familiar. "Those star patterns," Lisa whispered. "I know those constellations. That's Earth's night sky, but from a different angle." The images showed Earth, but not as they knew it. This Earth was covered in massive cities made of crystal and metal. Ships that looked like living creatures flew between the planets. And the beings who built it all looked almost human, but not quite. Jake grabbed Lisa's arm. "We're leaving now. Whatever this place is, we're not equipped to deal with it." But as they ran toward the exit, the chamber's entrance sealed itself with a wall of crystal. They were trapped above them on the surface. Alien ships landed around the new horizon. The ships were sleek and deadly, with weapons that could turn their small research vessel into dust in seconds. Commander Vextal of the Zephyrian Empire stepped out of his ship and breathed the thin air of the moon. His 4 arms moved gracefully as he signaled his troops to surround the human vessel. "Search the area," he commanded in his own language. "Find the humans who have disturbed the sacred sites of the first ones." The Zephyrians had been watching this system for generations, waiting for someone to activate the ancient ruins. According to their oldest legends, only the descendants of the first ones could awaken the sleeping technology. But humans were supposed to be a young species, barely out of their home system. They couldn't possibly be connected to the first ones who had ruled the galaxy. Millions of years ago, down in the crystal chamber, the images finally stopped flashing. The singing faded to a whisper. Lisa found herself standing in front of a new crystal formation that hadn't been there before. This one was different. It looked almost like a computer terminal, but made entirely of living crystal. "Doc," Ben said quietly, "look at your hands." Lisa looked down and gasped. Her hands were glowing with the same blue light as the crystals. The light seemed to be coming from inside her skin. Amy pointed at the crystal terminal. "There's writing, peering on it. And Lisa, I think it's in English." The words formed slowly on the crystal surface. "Welcome home, child of the first ones. We have been waiting for you to return." Jake stared at the message in shock. "That's impossible. This place is millions of years old. Humans weren't even around back then." Lisa stepped closer to the terminal. More words appeared. "You are the inheritors of our legacy. But beware. The old enemies still hunt in the dark between stars. They will come when they sense our awakening. Above them Commander Vextal watched his soldiers return from their search of the human ship. "Sir," one of them reported, "the humans are not on their vessel. Our scanners show they are somewhere beneath the surface." Vextal looked down at the sealed entrance to the ruins. "The sacred sites have awakened. Contact the Galactic Council immediately. Tell them the impossible has happened. The first ones have returned." In the crystal chamber below, Lisa read the final message that appeared on the terminal. "The test begins now. Prove you are worthy of the power that is your birthright, or watch the galaxy burn as it did before." The chamber fell silent. Lisa looked at her glowing hands and realized that everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the galaxy was about to change. And judging by the alien ships above them, not everyone would be happy about it.